Hey everybody, welcome back to Just Keep Parenting. That's what we do. We just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Last week we talked a lot about the side effects of rewards, right? They work short term, but long term, they kind of mess kids up sometimes. And so today we're going to continue and finish that chapter in our book called Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline. And I'm rocking my Dory moment hat today. I'm having a Dory moment this morning. It's been one of those weeks that we all have, right? But we just keep putting one foot in front of the other as we parent, as we teach, as we train. And so I'm going to finish off the end of the chapter today by talking about what now? What do we do now, right? We've talked about encouragement, we've talked about praise, we've talked about rewards, and so what now? How do we move forward with this? And one of the things that Dr. Bailey talks about in her book is that we need to express appreciation, love, and pride, right, in those kids that we're working with. When our heart swells with that, we need to tell them, we need to let them know. I know quite often the kids, they make me giggle on a regular basis. And I will say to them, I just love it when you guys come to school because you make my heart happy, right? And they can tell whether it's authentic or not, right? But just that whole notion of, gosh, I love these kids, or man, they make me happy. Just expressing that to them, right? And making sure that it is authentic, right? We need to be careful as we're doing that so that the goal is not the underlying goal, right? Sometimes we can be manipulative with our children. Gosh, I really appreciate how everybody's sitting quietly today. Are they sitting quietly today, right? Or do you have a couple of kids who aren't sitting quietly, and so then we're trying to get them, right, to sit quietly? And so we want to make sure that our goal, not our goal, but our words are authentic with what we're doing, right? We have to remember that our goal is to give when we're talking about this and not to get. If I need somebody to sit quietly, then I'm going to say, friends, everybody needs to be sitting quietly and looking at me, turning your ears on, so I know. When you look at me, I know you're listening, right? Rather than that manipulation, right? So there's been a question or two about good job, right? Do we say good job? Is it really detrimental to our kids when we say good job, right? And as we've talked about in videos before, it's okay to say it, right? But our tendency as humans is to only say good job, right? And not give them any other specific praise. And so it's simple, it's easy to say, right? But we have to be careful that it's kind of like antibiotics. I loved this story or the analogy that she gave. She talked about how sometimes we give antibiotics because we don't really know what's wrong, right? And that's kind of what judging praise or general praise feels like, is that antibiotic, right? If they're overused, they can kind of cause long-term problems for us. So it's not a bad thing to say good job, just making sure that when we have the time, we're giving the appropriate specific encouragement back to them. Then she also talks about balancing the flow of giving and receiving, right? Because I still remember my friend back in junior high that gave me the letter that said, I feel like a heel every time I give you a compliment because you always say, oh, no, it's not me, or, I just deflect it, right? And she talks about in the book how she has become much more receptive to encouragement than she was at the beginning when her friend called her out too, right? And I'm the same thing, right? Junior high was a long time ago for me, but I still remember Wendy giving me that note that just said, I always feel like a heel when you do this. Why can't you just say thank you, right? And it's made me stop and think many a time about how do you accept compliments, right? How do you accept those good things? To be able just to say thank you and move on, all right? But we have friends. We have friends who balance us, who make us think about that, right? I know this year, the word I'm thinking about is grace, because sometimes my university students and my littles, right, I'm just like, did you just really ask me that question, right? And so I want to stop judging them. I want to offer grace to them, right? And Becky talks about when I no longer need to judge, there are no longer two camps. We're all in the same camp, right? And so criticism no longer seems attractive, and we can give praise comfortably, right? When we're comfortable with who we are and what we're doing, it's so much easier to just give praise and say, way to go for that. I loved how you did this with the children today, right? It should be a part of what we're doing. We're not comparing them to us, right? These gals are 20 years old, right? I got 30 years on them. I'm 37 to be, right? I've got too many years on them. But as we stop comparing, as we stop the judging, then we can better give compliments to those that are around us, whether it's in parenting, teaching, or just in life in general. So there's no time like the present, Dr. Bailey says, right? And she says, start today. We've talked about the skill of encouragement, so you can go back and look at some previous videos. But we use the skill of encouragement, right, to ourselves and to children that we work with, right? Takes practice, it takes persistence, but she talks about how to do that. And we've talked about this in other videos, but just so that you can have it in your brain today, the first one is to notice our tendency to judge, right? Typically our children. And then choose a way to publicly highlight your family's helpful acts, right? So that kid can hear you saying something good about what's happening here to somebody else. And then consciously notice and encourage your child at least 5 times a day, right? Put that in if you're a note taker, if you're a list maker, put it in there, right? Set an alarm, whatever you need to do, but consciously notice and encourage, right? Not reward them, but notice and encourage your child at least 5 times a day. So here's the formula. We start your sentence, right, with one of the following. You, right? Look at you, or I noticed. So those are the 3 things that we can talk to the children about. I noticed you picked up that thing, that eraser for your friend today. And if I need to, I'm going to put a tag on it, right? That was a really kind thing to do. I noticed that you pushed in your chair today. Hey, Benjamin, you just pushed in your chair today. You pushed in your chair for somebody else, right? So it feels a little awkward at the beginning, but I promise you it will make your life so much better and the kids that you work with better, right? And so after we give that command, after giving a child a command, right, praise them if they've obeyed you, right? Cooperation, right? That's what we want. We're going from conflict into cooperation. And so no matter how long it takes, right, after the 5th time, we compliment them. Thank you for listening. That makes your life easier because I don't have to say it as many times, and it makes my life easier because this gets done, right? So no matter how long it takes, it deserves a little celebration. All right, so we're getting to the end of the chapter, right? So encouragement is the disciplined skill you use to highlight and teach acceptable behaviors during peaceful times. That's what we've been talking about for the last few months, is how to give encouragement, right? Because that is the skill that we use to teach and to highlight. Next week, my friends, we're going to be talking a little bit more about turning resistance into cooperation. It's one thing when they're cooperating and we're in peaceful times and we ask them, right? We tell them a command and they go forward with it. It's another thing, it's a little bit harder for us, right, when it's not so peaceful, right? So that's what we're going to start talking about. If you're following along in the book, it's actually chapter 7. It's called Positive Intent, Turning Resistance into Cooperation. She's got some really good ideas. We use them here in the lab school. I use them with my nephews and nieces, right? So, and I even use them with my teachers that are in training. So, have a great weekend. Keep on keeping on, right? Keeping on parenting, and just pat yourself on the back, right, for those celebrations that you do when you win at parenting this week. We don't always win, right? It's okay. We wake up tomorrow and we start again. We love the rewind, right? If you haven't watched any of the rewind videos, rewind and say, tomorrow's a new day, right? This afternoon's a new afternoon, right? So I don't have to wait till tomorrow. I tell my teachers in class today, When you say that thing that comes out of your mouth the wrong way, you just say, boys and girls, I'm going to rewind because I need to say that differently. And then you go forward, right? So change it when you can. Have a great weekend, everybody.